Matt, what are you doing over there?
These people know nothing about GPUs. It's ridiculous.
What if we did like a tier list to really settle the debate?
You know what? I think you're right. We're gonna do a GPU tier list today, ladies and gentlemen, to give you all the final list that you all need to know about the best GPUs to buy right now. But first, a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Micro Center and their amazing deals, top-notch associates, and more. It's a no-brainer that they're the best place to shop for computer hardware. Micro Center is even having a deal for new customers. You're able to get the Creality Ender 3 V2 3D printer for just $99. That's $100 in savings. Micro Center also has a back-to-school savings event going on right now. They have some crazy deals right now, like this Ryzen 5 7600X bundle. You get the CPU, a B650M motherboard, and 16 gigs of DDR5 for only $279. The value there is absolutely insane. And if you consider yourself a tech enthusiast, you're missing out if you aren't signed up for Micro Center News. With tech tips, reviews, exciting news, and more, Micro Center is posting the latest and greatest information in the industry for free, and you need to check it out. Plus, if you're located in South Florida, you're in luck. Micro Center is opening a brand new store in Miami. If you're interested in learning more about all of Micro Center's offerings, check out the links in the description down below or head over to microcenter.com. Big thanks to Micro Center for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it.
Okay guys, before we dive into the tier list, I gotta give a shout out to our friend Scattervolt. He's been doing these tier lists a lot recently and he's done a great job at them. They're like hour-long videos, very in-depth. If you guys want to see those, definitely check the links down below. But we wanted to give our take of a tier list. We want to do a GPU tier list, we eventually want to do a CPU one, but based on the Toasty Bros way, you might be a little upset with us.
So before you guys comment down below and go keyboard warrior mode, keep in mind this is for our use case, and Matt and I are even going to have differing opinions, so it is literally personal preference, and we hope you guys don't hate us.
Don't hate us too much, but enjoy these tier lists, and I want to read your comments afterwards. It's going to be great.
All right, guys, it's time for the tier list. So I'm just going to start and make my way down from the top. We have the Arc A380. That is a Intel GPU that I like, kind of like a 1650. Underrated card for sure, not a lot of people use them. I'm gonna put a B tier for now because the ARC cards, which honestly almost all of them are probably gonna be B tier. The A580 is pretty good. That one, I'm gonna go B tier. A750, I'm going B as well. A770, I'm just going B all the way. You know, these cards they're really good, but they still have a lot of room to catch up in terms of the price to performance in certain games because they're constantly updating drivers. So these cards could be A or S tier in the future, but for now, we're gonna go middle of the ground. 1660 Super. This is a subjective tier list. I'm gonna go based on used pricing, and in my mind, the 1660 series are pretty much going to be S tier because you can get them on eBay for around $100 a piece, anywhere from like 1 to 120. And bang for buck is amazing on those cards. Now the 3056 gig, I know we're gonna have some haters in the chat, but you guys gotta remember, it is the predecessor to the 1650, which was a great card when it was around 140 to 150 bucks, but let's be real, those cards range between 160 and 200 now, while the RTX 3056 gig has 2 more gigs of VRAM. It's GDDR6, it has ray tracing support, has newer NVENC, better driver support, they have better models of the card that are a little bit bigger and beefier. I'm going S tier because at $179, it's a wonderful card for the brand new market. Now the 3058 gig, those ones are a little more expensive, not quite as good. That's probably gonna be kind of B tier for me. RTX 3060 12 gig, I'm gonna go C tier for that one. You know, it's great. You know what, I'm gonna move the 3058 gig to C tier as well. 3068 gig, that's one that a lot of people don't love because it's actually a good amount slower than the 12 gig variant because the VRAM is actually a good amount lesser in terms of the overall performance. So not only are you losing 4 gigs, you're also losing a decent amount of performance. Oh man, I think I'm gonna go D tier with it. I honestly don't mind the card. I mean, for this, you don't save enough money on it. It needs to be a good amount cheaper for it to be worth it. Now the 4060 Ti 16 gig, I forget is even a card. Honestly, Zach may have made a typo, but I'm gonna call that F tier. You're gonna probably notice that if there's any other 16 gig cards that are really low end cards, I'm not a fan of them unless they are way cheaper than they never are. RTX 4060, that's a card I actually kind of like. I'm gonna make that B tier. They're pricey. They're very pricey, but honestly, they have some pretty good performance for the price. Same with the 4060 Ti. I'm gonna put that up there. With some of those newer technologies, you do actually get some really good performance gains. Now the 4070, this was a card that a lot of people didn't like at first. They didn't like the 4070, they didn't like the 4070 Ti. People were saying basically 4080 or 4090 or don't go 40 series. I disagreed heavily. I always thought that the 4070, when it was like $599 new, I thought it was a wonderful price because the next step up for the 4080, you were usually paying over $1,000. It is not worth $400 for the FPS difference. I'm gonna put all the 4070 cards right up here on A tier because I think they're awesome cards. Now the 4080 Super, this is getting into the territory I'm gonna put all of the higher end 40 series at C tier. And honestly, 4090, you guys gonna hate me for this, I'm putting it at D tier. Don't get me wrong, awesome car when they work right, but they're just so high end, they often have a lot of issues. So yeah, I'm really sorry guys, but I'm putting the 4090 down there. And also I cannot negate paying over $2,000 for this car because yeah, these 4090s are typically, or at least for a long time, they were over $2,000. For the 4070 to the 4090, we're talking about a $1,500 difference for nowhere near $1,500 worth of performance. Now this is one that we think Zach may be a typo on, the RX 500 series. So I'm gonna treat this as a 560 and 570. They were pretty decent cards, and they still are decent for budget builds. I'm gonna put them at C tier. Now the 580, guys, it doesn't have the same level of impact anymore, and I'm kind of trying to put this list on current pricing, new and used. At one point, this would have been like past S tier. There's nothing past S tier, but it would have been past S tier. I'm gonna say nowadays, with like the 580 2048s in the market and the used 580s on eBay, I gotta go B tier because honestly, like they're not cheap enough still. The RX 6400 is a card that, much like the 6500 XT, I'm gonna put the 6400 because of the low profile variant that doesn't require external power. I think it's a pretty good card. I'm gonna go B tier with it. 6500 XT, I'm probably gonna have to go C because it's a little bit of a weird card. Now, when we have found those cards for like, we got it at one point for like 36 bucks, it was absolutely goated, past S tier, but for the normal pricing of often over $100, not honestly worth it. I don't know why the 6500 XT 4 gigs here, but it's gonna go in the same spot. Now the RX 6600 XT, very good card. Really amazing for the price. That's gonna have to be S tier. Same with the normal 6600. 6650 XT is usually a little bit more pricey by like a decent amount, not that much more performance. A tier, but sometimes they're the same price. I'm just gonna put it there just because. Now, these are ones that I know Matt and I are gonna disagree on. He really likes the RX 6700 XT and of course the 6750 XT because of the 12 gigs of VRAM. I am much more of a proponent of the RX 7600 because you get pretty similar performance, less VRAM than 7600, but it's a newer card, typically the same price, sometimes even cheaper. I'm gonna put the 6700 XT at B tier. 6750 XT, I'm gonna go, really it's B tier as well, but I think just to make my list look a little better, I'm gonna go C because this is a card, once again, very minor performance gain for usually a decent amount more price. The 6800, I like that card a lot. That card often goes on sale pretty well still, so I'm also gonna go, At the same time though, I am remembering the 7700 XT is often the same price or cheaper. So I'm gonna put this at C tier nowadays. 7700 XT, yeah, not worth it. That's gonna go, sadly it's gonna go F tier. Now, if it's the right price, it's a great card. I mean, it's the 7600. I love that card, but with 7600, I'm putting that at S tier. I think it's a wonderful card right now. 7700 XT is gonna be, I'm gonna put it at A tier, also kind of the same deal. Really good. 7800 XT, that is an awesome bang for buck card, but it's still gonna be kind of A. You guys are probably noticing my S tier cards are always gonna be budget because that's when you're getting the most bang for buck. 700 GRE, awesome card. That is also going to go right here on this list. And I am kind of going in order. I think I'm gonna finish this up. Now, I'm gonna change my order a little bit because normally you kind of go like from best to worst. 7900 XT and the XTX are going to be, I'm honestly gonna put them at B tier because they're not really my favorite cards for the price, but they're good. All right, so 6600 XT, I'm gonna put the 6000 series. I like that. So basically 16 and 60 out of this whole list, I think best bang for buck right now. And then AMD coming in like really close with their budget 6000 and 7000 series. We have the 3056 gig coming in at S tier as well because I think it's an awesome card to succeed the 1650, which was long overdue. And then I'm gonna go ahead and move. Honestly, and guys, I want you to know I'm not an NVIDIA, I'm not an NVIDIA fanboy, and here's NVIDIA over most of these. I'm definitely much more AMD fanboy, but I do have to give it to NVIDIA, for like their streaming aspect. And also sometimes some pretty good bang for buck, of course. All right, so my list is actually looking pretty decent here. We're going kind of back and forth on Team Red versus Green, a little bit of blue in there too, but yeah, blues, Intel's sitting right in the middle. AMD and NVIDIA, of course, are coming out on top as they're going to for now. I think this is a pretty balanced list. I don't think Matt's will honestly be too much different from this, but I can see our top tier cards being different. But I'm gonna go ahead and save my list, and then Matt and I will compare and contrast once we're done.
All right, guys, it is time for me to dive into the tier list, and we're gonna kick things off with Intel. Intel GPUs come a long way, but let's see how I rank these in terms of their usability right now. I will say the A380 at $99 or less, really solid GPU, still has its problems, but because of that, I'm gonna put her in B tier. I think for a really budget build, if you're willing to deal with all the Intel Arc issues, an A380 for $99 is a really awesome GPU. But again, it's not gonna be that much better than something like a 6500 XT or a 1650, it's just cheaper. The A580, I actually really like this GPU. I might be in the minority on that, but I really like this GPU for the $500 build range. For me, it's an A tier. I don't know where Jackson put this thing, but the A580 for me is A tier because it performs close to the 6600 while being new around $30 to $40 cheaper. And for those $500 builds, to keep the build from being $550 or $500, I think that is a perfect price point. Now, I will say the higher end Arc cards, I'm not as big of a fan of because the performance increase isn't as dramatic, and I feel like when you're getting Arc, the best value is in the budget area, not the higher end area of the Arc cards. They are good if you can find them cheap enough, but that's why I put the A750 in C tier. I want to put the A770 also in C tier because I personally, if I was building a budget PC, I would consider Arc, but if I was building a mid-range PC, I would consider AMD all day, every day instead of buying an A750 or an A770. Now let's get into some NVIDIA GPUs. The 1660 Super, a card that is definitely old, but on the used market, and I think you'll realize with this tier list, we're definitely going for new and used, just our overall impressions of these cards and what use cases we think make sense for them. I think the 1660 Super is a B tier card. 6 gigs of VRAM is limiting, but if you want budget NVENC encoder, $100 or less on the used market, it's a great GPU for plop in budget builds for like $300 to $400, really awesome for that. I will say the 1660 Ti isn't as appealing unless you can find it for 1660 Super pricing. The same with the normal 1660. I'm gonna say the 1660 Ti, I'm actually gonna put C tier. The 1660, I'm gonna go ahead and put C tier as well. It's kind of the same thing with the A750 and A770. There's just a certain GPU in that sector, the 1660 Super, that slots in between them, that is the better bang for buck in my opinion, especially on the used market, because some people seem to overprice their TIs, but really any three of those NVIDIA GPUs, great for sub $500 budget PCs using the used market if you have to go NVIDIA. Now this is the one that's gonna get people a little riled up, and I bet Jackson probably put it pretty high as well. 3056 gig. In the low profile variant, it's a B tier. Now, as a normal standalone card, I don't really recommend it because it's fine. It's technically a GTX 1650 replacement. It's gonna have a price premium, but in its low profile variant for upgrading office PCs, it is the best and easiest card to use that requires no external power. Again, I know that market is very small and a lot of people don't go that route, but we cater to those people. And in terms of making content around that and also making videos that just talk about upgrading old office PCs, this is our go-to right now, even though it is a little pricey. I wish it was a little cheaper. $150, it would be S tier in my opinion. But at the price tag of around $179, I think it's a good 1650 replacement. Doesn't make it a great price performance card, but for its use case, I think it is good. 3058 gig. I have strong opinions about this card. I think it's fine. I think it's a forced card for people who want new NVIDIA, but I still think the 6600 being better than it and cheaper makes it harder to recommend for most people unless you really want new NVIDIA. Then it's not that bad, but I'm putting it D tier. It's D tier in my eyes because it's not worth the price difference, especially if we're doing 3056 gig. The 3056 gig is definitely a decent amount slower, but it has a use case. 3058 gig is only for those people who want to buy new and want to buy NVIDIA and want to spend $200 or less. That is the only option on the market, and because of its limited use case, it's going D tier for me. 3060 12 gig. 3060 becoming one of the most popular graphics cards according to the Steam hardware survey right now. The 3060 12 gig is one I would definitely lean towards if you can find it because the difference between the 12 gig and the 8 gig price difference is not that crazy on the used market. I think it's C tier. I think it's C tier. It's not amazing. It's not amazing, but if you can find one of these used for like 200 bucks or less, it's a good buy. I would put the 8 gig at C tier also. I think these are pretty equivalent. These kind of trade back and forth for me because just having the extra 4 gigs of VRAM for a card of this level doesn't make a major difference in my opinion. But if you can get the 12 gig, obviously get the 12 gig. Now the 4060 Ti 16 gig. It's going F tier. I don't think it should exist. I don't think it should exist. I think it was forced on NVIDIA's part. I really wish the 4060 in general was just a 12 gig card for the normal 4060 and the Ti. Maybe the Ti could have been a 12 gig. Actually, you know what? I just think 16 gigs is not worth it for this card level. It's just not yet. I think at some point it will be needed because of VRAM usage, but I just don't think it's worth it. The normal 4060 is getting better in my opinion. It's getting higher on my tier list, especially because you all just love buying the normal 4060. But again, it's gonna have limitations in the future, which is 8 gigs of VRAM, especially being a card that's $299. It's different if you buy something like a 6600 for 160 bucks that has 8 gigs of VRAM, paying almost double the price to get a 4060 with 8 gigs. Not ideal. It's very, very close to C tier for me. C or D, C or D. I'm gonna give it a C tier only because it has dropped in price recently. It is a little bit cheaper than it was. You could find them for $279, but it's still not a great value card. The 4060 Ti 8 gig, I'm gonna put in D tier because I think the price for $100 more, the performance isn't that much better. I still think the 4060 is a better bang for buck, especially because it doesn't pull that much power. It's cool for if you wanted to do an Office PC upgrade or a lower power supply system upgrade, the 4060 pulls way less power, so I think that's the use case for that, 4060 Ti. Now 4070 Super, I think is an awesome GPU for the price point. Of all the Super cards, I think the 4070 Super was like the best released one. This one's going A tier for me. For most people who want an NVIDIA GPU that's like a higher end build, get a 4070 Super and call it a day. I think it's an awesome card. I think it's great. Regardless of what your opinion is about the high-end GPU market from NVIDIA right now and their pricing, the pricing is what the pricing is nowadays for graphics cards. I wish they were cheaper, but they're not. But taking in the market and what it is, I think the 4070 Super is a good card at A tier. 4070 Ti Super is not a major uplift over the normal 4070 Ti. So for me, that card kind of slots into C tier. As you can see here, I am creating an interesting graphic here with my list, but that normally is how it works. A lot of cards that fall in the C tier. I think the 4070 Ti is a better bang for buck, but they are gonna stop making that. So C tier, it's good. B tier, maybe at some point in the future when pricing gets a little bit better on them. The 4070 Ti, as long as you can find it, I think is a B tier card. I would probably for bang for buck go for the 4070 Super, especially because of the power requirements, but the 4070 Ti is still a pretty solid card. The VRAM limitation kind of sucks, 12 gigs. I wish it was closer to 16 like AMD, but I rock one of these at home at my PC with a 5800X. I love it. Any game I play, really good FPS numbers, and I think it's a good graphics card overall, especially with the prices going down and the used market with it being replaced by the 4070 Ti Super. Now the normal 4070 was also a good card. I would say it's not nearly as good as the 4070 Super, so I'm gonna put that in B tier, but it was still a good card. I just think it was very limited in terms of price point. I think the Super really made it a much better bang for buck, and I think that will be a better option to go 4070 Super. But if you can find a good deal in a normal 4070, you definitely won't be disappointed. It's a good GPU, I just think the Super is better. Now the 4080 Super, I think it's overkill. You're gonna see these next three, they're good GPUs, but I think they're overkill, but they are good. So 4080 Super, I'm gonna put C tier. It's fine, it's okay. It's not much better than a normal 4080. 4080, I'm gonna put B tier, and I mean, just because it's the best graphics card on the market, I don't think most people should buy it, but it's the best graphics card on the market. We're gonna go A tier for our NVIDIA GPU. And if you haven't noticed, I do not have a single S tier NVIDIA GPU because I really don't think NVIDIA has the best value cards right now. I think AMD has a lot of them, and I'm excited to go through this. Now, we do have 500 series as basically the RX 560 and 570 and other cards with driver support falling apart. I think these are more C tier. Same, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do something kind of controversial. I love the 580 and the 500 series. I'm gonna go D tier because I think recommending wise nowadays, it's much harder to recommend these cards unless you get them for super, super cheap. But the ones you get super, super cheap are really abused. Same for the RX 580. It's a legendary card, but it's getting so old in the tooth. Unless you can find them for $50 or $60 and you're building a $150 to $200 gaming PC, it's hard for me to recommend anymore. Now the 6400 is a card that most people would put F tier. With the 3056 gig on the market now, I think this is a less appealing card. I'm gonna put her in C tier. Low profile version makes sense. I think it's the reason it makes sense is the low profile version, but with the 3056 gig being, I think on average about $40 more, I would much rather go with that card. The models of the 6400 that exist that are low profile that we do sell at PC Bros, our PC selling business, they work for Optiplexes, but once you get to newer office computers, they run super hot, and I'm just not a huge fan of them. That's kind of been a battle we've been dealing with at PC Bros to try to make them work great. But I still think it has a place, but it's more C tier in my eyes. 6500 XT. I'm going F tier for both of these. This is probably, I'm assuming he did the 6500 XT 4 gig and the non. I'm assuming he means some of the 8 gig ones that are out there. I just don't recommend them. We bought one for $37. So $37 is a no-brainer, but I just would not buy one nowadays unless you find one for $30, $37. 6600 XT. Now the XT, I'm going to give B tier. Good graphics card, very awesome bang for buck, but the 6600, but first S tier graphics card, this thing is awesome. Used market, $130 to $140. New market, $189 to like $200. But you can step up and get something even better also. But the 6600, it sips on power. It's great for mid-range gaming PCs. Entry-level 1440p. The price is insane. It's my favorite budget GPU, and it is my true RX 580 replacement, and I expect it to be around for a long time in our budget builds. 6650 XT, I don't have a ton of use with, actually. We mainly have gone the 6600 and the 6600 XT, but it's only a little bit more expensive, and it actually is good bang for buck, so I'm gonna go A tier for this one. In terms of the 6700 XT, it depends on the price you get it at. If you can get it at a decent price, it's a definite better card versus something like a 4060 in terms of price to performance. So I'm gonna go 6700 XT. We'll go B tier. Go B tier with that one. 6750 XT, I think, is in the same boat. It's a good 1440p card. I don't think it delivers the best bang for buck, but it is a good value option. That's a B tier for me as well. 6800, oh man, if you can find this card for $400, beautiful, beautiful GPU, 1440p, high settings. Throw it in with a 7000 series Ryzen. You can do a $1,000 build pretty easily with this graphics card with 16 gigs of VRAM. AMD's just killing it, man. They're just killing it. 7600 XT. I don't like this card. I'm going D tier. The 16 gigs of VRAM makes very little difference. In our testing, it makes very little difference. And at the time of recording this video, you save almost like $60 to $70 going with the 7600 versus the 7600 XT. If that car comes down in price, maybe to $300 or like $290 and is maybe $30 more expensive, then sure, get it with 16 gigs of VRAM. But I really think that it was a forced card by AMD to try to compete with the 4060 Ti 16 gig or the 4060 with the higher VRAM, and both of those were flops. So I think they realized not to do that on the lower end to entry level, or honestly, in my opinion, the mid-range cards, they don't necessarily need the 16 gigs. 12 would have been cool, but 16, it just doesn't need it yet. Speaking of the 7600, that one is a B tier for me. I still think the 6700 XT is a better overall card if you can find it, because it can be had for about the same price and is a little bit faster. 8 gigs of VRAM, a little limiting in my opinion, but I think it is a good B tier card. In terms of the 7700 XT, I think that's a really good option for 1440p entry level. I still will lean B tier for it though. I'm gonna go B tier. It's a good card, but I think the 7800 XT is really good bang for buck. That one's definitely A tier for me. 7800 XT, great 1440p high settings card. Honestly, from all the games we've tested with it, for most of you at home, you do not need much more than this graphics card to play games. And if you're willing to go AMD, great option. The GRE, baby. I love how a China-only exclusive came to the US and became AMD's best high-end card for the value, Obviously the 7800 XT and XTX exist, but the GRE, man, the GRE is just that much better. And then the 7800 XT, I will go B tier. And the XTX, I will go B tier as well. I think these two cards are worth it, but with the GRE, I don't really know how many people are going to want to spend more money for these higher end cards. The GRE is such a good bang for a buck. You know what? Actually, just because it's a really good card and it undercuts the 4080, I'm gonna go with A tier for the 7900 XTX. I'll switch that up a little bit, but I'm pretty confident with this list. Bottom tier being the 4060 Ti 16 gig, 6500 XTs, whatever, and all the way across the board. I think our S tier is good. I bet Jackson has the 6600 as S tier. I don't know if he has the GRE as S tier. I'm wondering if he has the NVIDIA GPUs as S tier, but that's my tier list. Let's go ahead and start comparing these.
I'm ready to see how wrong Matt is.
He's ready to see how wrong I am. I'm ready to see what these tier lists look like. Jonah, which one do we look at first?
I'm gonna go Jackson since he went first.
All right, we're gonna open up Jackson's and I gotta react to it. All right, here we go.
Oh, and one thing that Zach did correct me on is the 6500 XT and the 6500 XT 4 gig. I guess he really meant the 8 gig versus the 4 gig. I didn't know that at the time.
Cool. Okay, so F tier 7600 XT and the 4060 Ti. I think we have the identical F tier, but I put a couple other ones down there.
Ooh, really?
4090 for D tier.
All right, do you want to hear my explanation?
I want to hear the explanation.
Okay, so I did my list based on current pricing,
Yes.
new and used, okay?
Okay, yep,
So
yep.
that was one thing for me. 4090 is typically unreliable and unstable.
Yep.
We've seen a lot of warranty issues with those cards.
Yep.
And on top of that, let's just be real, the price difference going from something like the 4070 Ti Super to the 4090, we're talking double or more the price for not nearly double the performance.
That's fair, I get that. D tier 6500 XT, okay, 6750 XT. 6800 I would have had higher. See?
So the 6800, the only reason I did that is because, this is just memory.
Yep.
I feel like the 7700 XT and the 7800 XT are often like the same price.
They normally are the same price, yeah. I guess it just depends if you want to argue the 16 gigs of VRAM factor.
Yeah.
If you are a 16 gig of VRAM gamer, the 6800 is a really good option. 3060, 3050, 3050 at C tier, okay, I like that. 4080 Super, I like those.
And that's the 8 gig, you know,
Okay.
3050.
I like this, the 7800 XT and the XTX at B tier. They are good cards, but they are expensive.
You know why I did the 6400, low profile.
I like how you put all the art cards at B tier.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good for the price. I basically stated that if they were priced worse, they'd of course go a lot lower. If they were priced better, they'd go higher. I'm very much price to performance.
How is the GRE not S tier?
Honestly, I didn't put anything expensive in S tier for whatever
Oh,
reason.
so you made S tier the budget. I see it right here. So we
Yeah,
have the 1660,
yeah.
1660 Ti, 1660 Super, 6600 I agreed with for
When I
S tier.
told Zach that I did the 1660 as like the top of the line,
Yeah?
he looked disgusted.
You look disgusted.
And my only
Yes.
point is the price to performance on
Yes.
eBay. That's
Yes.
all I have going for this.
Which is why our tier list is different from other ones, which we do have to give a shout out again. Well, we mentioned at the beginning of this video, shout out to Scatterroll. He's been doing these tier lists where he goes very like performance based. A lot of this is our use case, and we tend to lean much more towards use case versus just raw performance numbers. Something might be a little worse on the price performance scale, but its use case kind of makes up for the fact that it's a little more expensive, and that's kind of what we're going for with some of these. But
Kind of like the 580, that would have been, I said this would have been over S tier a couple years ago, but I said now for the price to performance, it's just not there anymore.
so Jonah said he was gonna blast us for this list. I want Jonah to come in after each of us are done and tell what he thinks of the list.
I mean, it's not a bad list, honestly. I'd probably rank the 4080 Super higher and the
Okay.
4080 lower, 4090 higher, just because it is still a really good card.
Right. I mean, it's top of the line.
It's top of the line. I think the 4070 Ti Super should be S tier, personally.
I can
Personally.
honestly, so my problem is I have trouble rating any of the 40 series over each other because the price is just so stupid. Sometimes the normal 4070 will be more than the 4070 Ti, and you know what I mean? Like they're
It depends
really
on the model,
weird on price.
because there's tons of models, and depending on the model, you could be spending like 2K for a ROG Strix, or you could
right.
be spending like a little bit less for a PNY.
But no, I could agree with that. I think I could have had more S tier cards. I probably could have had more F and D tier as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like I'd probably go 6500 XT D tier.
I could
Sorry.
see it though. What did I put it?
There's also a 4 gig. The 4 gig 6500 XT is probably also D tier, unless you get it for $37. Shout out.
Well, no, and I did mention that. I said I'm not going to count that, but I was like, at $100 plus, it's pretty bad.
And yeah, Intel art cards. I mean, I just still think they need a little more driver support, so I'd probably go with C tier.
Okay, I
But
can see it.
smaller revisions, but overall,
this is
it's
good.
not
I'll
bad.
take this.
I was expecting worse. I'll be honest.
See, I was convinced that our list wouldn't be too far
So-
apart, except I said my S tier would be a lot different.
I had very little S tier and F tier. Like
Okay.
I had maybe like 1 or 2 cards in each one. So here we go.
Oh my God, his B has a second row.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Just start looking. Here we go.
Okay, so I like your S tier, the RX 6600 and the 700 GRE, which I know you had a comment on. Why not the GRE? You got a good point, honestly. It is a really good price to performance card, so I like it. Oh man, all right, I'm gonna work my way down, but the C tier hurts me. All right, the ARC A580 is A tier because of the price to performance.
Price to performance. I think for the $500 price range for a PC build, the A580, it saved you about 30 or 40 bucks versus the 6600. And I would say, my reason, you're probably wondering about these C tier, right? The other ARC cards, or are you talking about something else?
That and also the 1660 series.
Yes. So I have a 1660 Super as B tier.
Oh, you do? Okay,
I think the other ones are not as worth it as the 1660 Super.
Typically for the price.
Yes, because normally for the price, this one is in between, and the price normally is about $100. The TI you tend to spend like $20 more for, and it's not worth it.
Right, okay.
And then the normal 1660 is a decent amount slower versus the Super. So going with the Super, I think is better, and I think it's good B tier.
Okay, I can see that. And then, okay, so for B tier, okay, so we're pretty close on that. You like all of the, you know, 6000 series. I'm surprised you didn't put the 67RXT higher. I thought you really liked that card.
I was really close on that. I think it kind of ties with like the RX 7600 in my opinion. They're both good cards. I don't think they're as like great and legendary as like the 6600 is in my opinion, just because of the bang for buck. But it was close for me. It was really close for A tier, or two of my C tiers actually.
4070 Ti Super and the 4080 Super for C tier. All right, let's hear it. Why?
So 4070 Ti Super, very little performance uplift over the 4070 Ti. VRAM, I like it, but price to performance, it's just not there in benchmarks. 4080 Super is literally like 2% better than normal 4080. So I think of all the Super cards, those were kind of forced. I think the 4070 Super was the best Super card, and that's why I ranked it as A tier. I just don't think the Ti Super, obviously the one thing I mentioned is at some point the Ti is going to be gone, and the 4070 Ti Super is going to be the only option. And at that point, if it's a slot in, I would say B tier.
You know, dude, I'm realizing you didn't have, okay, well, you had the 3056 again B tier. All right, agreed.
Yes.
At first I thought you didn't have the 3050 at all up there, and I'm like, no way. The 6400, why C tier for that one?
Because I think the 3056 gig is just better now. I think
yeah, that's a good
for
point.
low profile. I think the 6400 was B tier, but I think because the 6 gig low profile exists now, I would pick that every day over the 6400, even though it's more expensive.
No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so you put the normal 4060 in C and then the 4060 Ti in D. Why that?
Mainly because the 4060 is so power efficient, I think, and they did a price slash on the 4060, so it's like $279 now. I don't really like those cards in general, just because of the VRAM limitation. They're fine, but at $299 you could get an AMD GPU that's like better, in my opinion. So.
And I see you're kind of, because I know Matt and I both, we would have highly agreed 580 S tier and beyond.
It's the drivers, man. Yeah. It's hard for me to recommend them nowadays. Like, they're good, and they would have been S tier, like, even just 2 years ago, but it's just harder to recommend them now.
Yeah. Not to mention, sometimes you're still paying $70, $80, $90. Okay, yeah, the 7600 XT, I'm kind of surprised that didn't go F tier. Was that close?
It was very close. I would say, like, it's one of those where I could still see a use case if it was a little bit cheaper. It's one of those that, like, even just a $20 price slash would make it
great.
Fine. Yeah, it'd be good. And it was just close enough.
Yeah, and of course we got the 4060 Ti 16 gig F tier, that makes sense. The RX 6500 XT and the, ooh, okay, so you put these, 6500 XT, both of them. So, by the way, we mentioned that, 8 gig and 4 gig, but they're basically the same card, but F tier. So why F tier?
I just think
they don't have a place.
It's just such a limited card. Like, I just think the limitation of the PCI lane, obviously Gen 4 systems, if I was buying this card, I'd be using like a really budget system that maybe Gen 3, so you're limited there. No encoder whatsoever. I know people aren't going to live stream on it, but that's not great. And then 2 video outs on them. I just think there's too many things that are wrong with them to where when you're spending $100 more for a graphics card, when the A380 exists, which has more VRAM, has its issues, it's not perfect, but I just think it does really push that card down.
And on top of that, you know, it's a card that fluctuates in price a lot, so sometimes it's awesome, like when we got it for $37.
$37, yes, can't beat that. I definitely mentioned that for sure.
But yeah, no, this is, I think we're both a pretty good list. Joni, you wanna check out?
Going back to Jackson's list, I think the 16 series GPUs across S tier was a bold move. A little weird, but I get it. For budget builds, they're pretty good. I'm just shocked that you don't have any...
No NVIDIA GPU S tier?
No NVIDIA GPU
I'm not giving them the credit for making their stuff too expensive right now.
I guess.
I will say the closest one would have been the 4070 Super.
4070 Super is good. It's probably the best new
Yes,
NVIDIA card
it
right
would've
now
been the
for
closest
for
one
the
for
price
sure.
at least. Yeah, it's not a bad list. I think I agree with a couple. I agree with the. I'd probably bump up the RTX 4060 honestly, because now that it's like basically the same price as the 3060, I honestly think it's a pretty good value if you want NVIDIA. Obviously,
I think it's the same card of like if you want to go NVIDIA, it's going to be your best option. That's why I think it kind of ties with the 12 gig, 3060, and 8 gig because they are very equal.
They're equal.
They're equal, and used pricing you can save a bit of money. But I am thinking they're getting closer to B tier, but I think C tier is still pretty good because it's just fine.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a pretty good list. I wish I could have seen more of S tier. Like more S tier.
You wanted to see more S tier?
Yeah, and honestly, I wanted to mention I've been shopping for 4070 Ti's for a buddy.
Yes.
I don't know if they make them anymore.
I don't think they do.
It's hard to find them.
I think they're pretty much gone now, which is the problem. And in that case, I really wish the Ti Super was more closer to the Ti price. I think that's why I probably wouldn't rank it higher. Is it is a good chunk higher.
When they were going on sale, when they were discontinuing them.
Yes.
But I mean, they're normally like $799, $800 now for a handful of models.
Yeah. So it will go up there. Definitely inventory-wise with the 4070 Ti. If you can't find it, obviously the Super is your next best option because you get more VRAM and such. But yeah, definitely when they were getting rid of the Ti, those prices were so hard to pass up for sure. So that's pretty much it.
Very different, very different.
Very different lists, very different ways to look at it. Let's wrap this video up.
All right, guys, well, you get to see where our opinions kind of agreed and also where they differed. And overall, I think we both had really solid lists. We obviously have tested a lot of graphics cards between Toasty Bros and PC Bros, so we're pretty knowledgeable, but we know you guys at home are probably going to have much different opinions. So we'd love you guys to click that link down below and submit your tier list.
Yeah, you can tweet it at us, join our Discord, and you can share it as well, and you can continue the discussion. And let us know which tier list you enjoyed the best in the comments down below. And we will be doing a CPU one here on the channel very soon, and we may be doing other ones in the future if you guys enjoy this style of content.
So as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/ToastyBros. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Now, if you agreed with our tier list, you should check out PCBros.tech. And if you disagreed with it, you're just wrong.
You're just wrong, and you should go to PCBros.tech and buy a PC because you don't know nothing about GPUs. Buy a gaming PC, use code ToastyBros on checkout, you'll save 3% on your next purchase. See you guys later, goodbye.